Hello to all. The information I'm about to read to you is taken from www.joyofsatan.org. Dabbling in Satanism. Satanism is very different from other religions. Satanism is different in that it does not mix. Mixing Satanism and Christianity, for example, is like mixing water with electricity. I have seen and read accounts where certain people who had an interest in Satanism still have sympathies with Christianity. There were still strong unconscious ties to the Christian religions resulting from intense indoctrination. Most of us came from Christian backgrounds, and for many there are still some lingering issues and hang-ups. Christian programming is very intense, and given the extremely large amounts of psychic energy that have gotten into it through centuries of Christian prayers and belief, there is a lot of negative programming that one must overcome in order to be totally free. In addition to this, Christianity has infested and has been embedded in nearly everything. Much of this is subliminal. For more information concerning this, please visit the web page Why It Can Be Difficult to deprogram from Christian Indoctrination. This was in reply to a post in one of the Joy of Satan e-groups. Something I want to add to this thread. I am posting this to all of the Joy of Satan e-groups and the forums, as there are people here who are new and others are still having problems. Most people are unaware of the extent of the mass mind and its influence. The Judeo-Christian and Muslim virus has infested and has been embedded in the mass mind for centuries. This is also subliminal. In other words, your logical conscious mind is often not aware of it to the extent that it is there. But your subconscious mind and soul take this filth in. In addition to the extent it has infested and embedded, it is relentlessly pushed and kept going by its worldwide. Take just 1 year for example. Pagan holidays were hijacked. Millions were tortured and murdered, so much for the Christian lies of love and peace and free will. Christianity has never been tolerant of any other beliefs, especially paganism. As for the Jews whining about being persecuted by Christians, this is another lie, and what little they were was just for show. Catholic popes during the Inquisition, I already made a video about that, ordered their inquisitors to leave the Jews alone. Christianity has always been pushed under the threat of torture and death onto the populace. In Japan, the emperor kicked the Catholic Jesuits out of the country as they wanted to murder all of the Buddhists that would not convert. The Jesuits are another Jewish program, and the Jews retaliated in 1945 with bombing Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Hiroshima and Nagasaki, a Jewish experiment. Quote, it was only after the war that the American public learned about Japan's efforts to bring the conflict to an end. Chicago Tribune reported Walter Trohan, for example, was obligated by wartime censorship to withhold for 7 months one of the most important stories of the war. In an article that finally appeared on Stories of the War, end of quote. In an article that finally appeared on August 1945 on the front pages of the Chicago Tribune and the Washington Times Herald, Trohan revealed that on January 20, 1945, 2 days prior to his departure for the Yalta meeting with Stalin and Churchill, President Roosevelt received a 40-page memorandum from General Douglas MacArthur outlining 5 separate surrender of overtures from high-level Japanese officials. The complete text of Trohan's article is in the winter 1985 to 86 journal, page 508-512. This memo showed that Japanese were offering surrender terms virtually identical to the ones ultimately accepted by the Americans at the formal surrender ceremony on September 2. That is completely surrender of everything but the person of the emperor. Specifically, the terms of these peace overtures included complete surrender of all Japanese forces and arms at home or on Iceland possessions and in occupied countries, occupation of Japan and its possessions by Allied troops under American direction, Japanese relinquishment of all territory seized during the war, as well as Manchuria, Korea, and Taiwan. Regulation of Japanese industry to halt production of any weapons and other tools of war, release of all prisoners of war and internees, surrender of designated war criminals. Few people can comprehend the extent of horror that resulted from the use of atomic weapons. The civilians of Hiroshima were attacked early in the morning. Citizens were getting ready to go to their jobs. Children were preparing for school, and no one was aware of what was to come. When Cologne Tibbets dropped the bomb, the shock waves were so intense that they knocked the plane about in the sky. The area where the bomb hit, the center was as hot as the surface of the sun. People melted into walls, only the shadows of their jarred images remained. The plight of the survivors was even far worse. The skin peeled right off the bones of the many who were still living. Hair fell out of their heads in clumps. Fetuses fell right out of the abdomens of pregnant women. Many others suffered third-degree burns and long-term horrendous effects, such as keloid scars caused by terminal radiation. Quote, President Truman steadfastly defended his use of the atomic bomb, claiming that it saved millions of lives by bringing the war to a quick end. Justifying his decision, he went so far as to declare, "The world will note that the first atomic bomb was dropped on Hiroshima, a military base. That was because we wished in this first attack to avoid in so far as possible the killing of civilians." End of quote. This was a preposterous statement. In fact, almost all of the victims were civilians, and the United States Strategic Bombing Survey, issued in 1946, stated in its official report, quote, Hiroshima and Nagasaki were chosen as targets because of their concentration of activities and population. End of quote. If the atomic bomb was dropped to impress the Japanese leaders with the immense destructive power of new weapon, this could have been accomplished by deploying it on an isolated military base. It was not necessary to destroy a large city, and whatever the justification for the Hiroshima blast, it is much more difficult to defend the second bombing of Nagasaki. End of quote. After the July 1943 firestorm destruction of Hamburg, the mid-February 1945 Holocaust of Dresden, and the fire bombings of Tokyo and other Japanese cities, America's leaders, as United States Army General Leslie Groves later commented, quote, were generally inured to the mass killing of civilians. End of quote. Quote, the experiment has been an overwhelming success. The overwhelming success. End of quote. President Harry S. Truman reportedly told his shipmates upon learning that the United States military had dropped the atomic bomb on Hiroshima. Quote, after the bombings, Japanese filmmakers attempted to document the horror that the atomic bombs left in Japan. Recognizing this as potential threat, the United States military seized all Japanese footage and then placed an order banning all future filming. End of quote. Hiroshima and Nagasaki, fact and fiction. Lie. Leaflets were dropped on Japanese cities to warn civilians to evacuate. Truth. Leaflets were dropped after we bombed Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Lie. Our use of the atomic bombs shortened the war. Truth. The Japanese were looking for a peace when they returned from the Potsdam Conference on August 3, 1945, 3 days before the United States military bombed Hiroshima. Lie. We bombed Hiroshima, which was an important Japanese army base. Truth. We bombed the city center of Hiroshima, which had a population of 350,000. Truth. Only 4 of the 30 targets were, in fact, military in nature. In truth, the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki were experiments masterminded and advocated by Jews. Quote, we may never actually have to use this atomic weapon in military operations, as the as the mere threat of its use will persuade any opponent to surrender to us. End of quote. James Weisman, Jew. References: Institute for Historical Review article. Was Hiroshima necessary? Why the atomic bombings could have been avoided by Mark Weber. I bet. I'll direct a link in the description for that. Getting back to the year, I'm getting back to why it can be difficult to deprogram from Christian indoctrination. Getting back to the year, what were once pagan holidays and celebrations, all of this has been hijacked with the energies being directed into Judaism and Christianity. If you do some research, this is worldwide and in nearly every country, with the exception of Islamic countries, and they do their own spiritual destruction and subliminal ugliness, infesting the mass mind with total rot. Also, in addition to the main holidays, there are other numerous dates where the Christians spew their filth. Take Spain, for example. Their huge celebration of Holy Week, and then there is that Pentecost, which was also hijacked, and the list is extensive. Take all of that energy along with the churches and their slavish worshipping folk who work relentlessly for not only their own damnation and destruction, but also that of all humanity and all life on this earth. They are too stupid and deluded to see this. Then there is the Jewish-controlled media. All the while the Jews pretend to be enemies of Christianity and persecuted by it. This is to fool the populace. Most people actually believe these lies, while in truth the Jews promote Christianity zealously behind the scenes, though they do so quietly and secretively, not different from those kosher symbols on our food bottles and jars, etc. Many TV shows and movies are steeped, I don't know how to pronounce it, in Christianity. For example, many years ago, Little House on the Prairie was here during what we called Family Hour. It is not only heavy Christian themes, but with a Jewish knowledge of psychology. It combined those themes with strong emotional reactions that were intended to be deeply touching for the audience. This sort of thing is powerfully subliminal, especially when it affects more than one sense or emotion. Then there was the family series The Waltons that promoted the same sort of subliminal Christian messages. I haven't watched any regular TV in probably more than 30 years, so this is going way back, but my point is, anyone here with even half a brain is aware how the Jews controlled the media. Another one, the 1959 movie Ben-Hur. I heard there was a recent sequel, but I wouldn't waste my time. The music that filled in Azurini and all of the subliminal messages intended to associate Christianity and its related themes in the average mind with deeply touching, profound, tear-jerking, and emotionally moving scenes. Few people would not be emotionally moved at the ending of that movie, and the Jews who wrote and promoted this knew it. I also want to add that that movie was promoted for families, and children saw it, and it had bloody violence in it, along with other unsavory content that was not suitable for children. I also mentioned in my other sermons I like to do crossword puzzles, as do other millions of people. It is glaringly obvious most if not all the world and other puzzle books on the newsstand were authored and published by Jews. Most of these puzzles, and even in your local newspaper, have queries about that filled Bible. In other words, it is taken for granted that the populace is supposed to just know this letter garbage like it is common knowledge. How many of you can walk down an aisle in a market or store during the Yule season and hear instrumental Xmas hymns, and even though there may not be words in a particular hymn, how many of you know the lyrics by heart? This is the kind of crap I mean. It is and has been so infested and embedded. Most of us know the lyrics verbatim. The music alone is enough, and before you know it, your mind pulls up the lyrics. Then, for those of us who were forced to go to church when we were underage, the embedded prayers, the robotic, stupid, meaningless trash that we had to memorize and repeat endlessly. Every stinking vile church service or mass is a repeat of the human blood living sacrifice of that fallen Nazarene. It is so repetitive and purposely embedded to no end. To add to this, Most people are literally bored out of their minds, and when dozing off or in a mentally receptive state, this psychological poison takes hold like hypnosis. This is where it really gets in bed. Even those with the lowest intelligence levels are very open and receptive, as it is endlessly repeated and reinforced. This is why this world is in the current state of the depravity. The um, in the current state of depravity, the wars, the extreme suffering, and every other ugly and negative thing. Individuals do not have to read the Bible. All they have to do is to tie into that negative energy, and it is embedded in the mass mind. And right now, this earth is on the brink of disaster. The Christian mass and how it ties into Jewish ritual murder. I already made a video about that. In addition to its being perpetrated by humanity, enemy aliens known as Greys, who have a microchip implant, work relentlessly to push this malignant program. Many of us have been directly harassed by this alien degenerated scum spiritually on the astral. Christianity and its related little poisonous programs do not take no for an answer. Just as humans who have been heavily infected with the Christian virus and tie into its energy have an obsessive or compulsive disorder disorder when it comes to getting others to accept Jesus. Enemy spooks do the very same. Now that the same level of free thought and freedom of religion have been established in most Western developed countries, these alien spooks are working even harder in other ways to try to destroy it. Enemy spooks cannot refrain from harassing those of us who know the truth. It will tell you too, there does come a time when they will no longer try to deceive you with the Christian lies. It is when you know the truth 100%. Then they resort to other tactics of harassment. My advice to all of you who are having problems getting Christian, Muslim, and related embedded poison out of your minds is to study, and do more studying. There are a lot of sermons, articles, and all kinds of reading material on the main Joy of Satan website, Satan's Library, in exposing Christianity. If any of you are having reservations in regards to trying to call upon original gods or demons, then my advice is to wait. There is no hurry. Clear your mind first, and then only when you feel completely relaxed and comfortable, you can go ahead with this. True Satanism is liberation and freedom, especially spiritual liberation and freedom. You only need to be yourself. Nothing is forced upon you. Be aware of and know this. Just be free. If there is something you're not completely comfortable with, then don't do it. Work on yourself and work on ridding your mind of that full toxic Christian waste first, and replace it with positive knowledge, positive thoughts, and a positive faith. Positive faith is not blind faith. Positive faith is faith in what you know to be true, and faith in yourself to make the correct choice, free of coercion and any fear. Getting back into dabbling in Satanism. People who are uncertain of their beliefs and who still have strong ties to Christianity or other related programs, either consciously or in many cases subconsciously, can be setting themselves up for some very frightening and negative psychic experiences. Calling upon demons and going deep into the occult can bring up some very unexpected negative encounters for dabblers. This is the work of enemy alien entities that use fear to keep humans away from Satan. In most cases, this works as it instills terror in the dabbler, and he or she usually goes running back to the Nazarene and blames Satan. I strongly suggest those who wish to go this far first become strong in Satan. This can be done by studying and reading everything on this website. Very, very few, if any, progress in power unless they have a very powerful protector. Very, very few, if any, progress in power unless they have a powerful protector. When one who is serious in developing the powers of the mind advances to any formidable level, or has any serious ability, he or she will be approached by powerful entities asking him or her to take sides in a spiritual war. The truly gifted who walk alone usually don't live very long on this earth without the protection of a higher power. I feel it is important to warn those who are undecided or lukewarm to stay away from calling up demons or trying to contact spirit entities until they are spiritually ready. Everyone is welcome here, from the dedication to the curious. Knowledge should be open and available for everyone. For everyone. There are some things so that are advanced, and one should wait before getting involved in these practices. At some point, it is very important step in Satanism to cut all ties with any and all other religions. To avoid doing this is inviting disaster. This must be done from the soul in that there should be no indecision or mixed feelings. If there are mixed feelings, then one should wait, as this is a permanent step. Even for those of you who have already perform the dedication ritual, it is still important to deprogram yourself from any Christian indoctrination. Thank you for listening, and